So we all know how fantastic the Toronto Police Services have been for us, for our community, since October 7th, and even before then, but especially since October 7th. There is rarely a day that I come to the synagogue where I do not see a police cruiser who has checked in on us or who is on their way to check in on us. We have a direct line to our local district. They answer our questions. They reassure us when things are challenging. And we are honored, of course, to have representatives from the Toronto Police Services with us this morning. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. Thank God for you. And it's my pleasure to invite you to briefly address the congregation.
Thank you. Good job, sir. Thank you very much. I'm Deputy Chief Rob Johnson, and on behalf of Chief Myron Demke, who's been here a few times, I have myself. Just want to thank you for a few moments this morning to welcome us in your shul. We just want to reiterate that our commitment to making sure that our Jewish communities are safe, remain safe, through these troubling times. And we're going to be standing next to you until you're sick of us, and hopefully you won't be anytime soon. It's a real honor to be here, like I said, today, especially with good friends of ours, Michael Levitt from Friends of Simon Wiesenthal, and especially like to welcome Brigadier General Dror Avda, who's here from the Israeli National Police. Spent a couple of days in Toronto observing and connecting with different communities, including the Toronto Police Service, and we're proud of the relationship that we've formed to learn from each other. So I'd like to introduce Dror this morning, who's going to address you.
So, Shabbat Shalom. My name is Dror. I'm a professional police officer, more than 35 years in the Israeli National Police, and my mission is, this last 2 years, I'm the Israeli police attaché for all of the law enforcement agencies in US, Canada, and Dominican Republic, so I can go in the winter to the sun like a good Jew. I spent the last 3-4 days under the hospitality of Friends of Simon Wiesenthal, attending in the conference that how can we battle the anti-Semitism, very long and challenging mission. Started 3,000 years ago, and we need to think in another ways all the time. And I was still hosting by the Toronto Police to learn a little bit how they policing communities, how they securing communities, how they engage in challenges like terror and intelligence and other things. And I can tell you, from my humble perspective, that you have a very good, solid friends and a partnership with the Toronto PD, and they are very committed to this mission. If we are going to look on last week parasha and this parashat HaShavua, last week we stand like one person, one voice under Mount Sinai and said, Na'aseh v'nishma, and we took upon ourselves the 10 Commandments that are the core of our religious, if you want, the core of every human being that is committed to לא תרצח, לא יהיו לך אלוהים אחרים על פניי, לא תעדיף, you shall not have another God upon me, not respect, not power, not money, only the truth. And this world is dividing from this Mount Sinai event for people that are following the truth and people that try to harm them more than 3,000 years. You can call them Babylonians, Romans, Inquisition, Nazis, terrorists. All the time there are people that are committed to לא תרצח, and there are people that are not committed to this command. And they are killing another human being. It can be infants, it can be women, because they are believing on another way. They are worshiping in another way. They are in another color. maybe another gender, they are not following לא תרצח. And this פרשת השבוע, it started with ואלה המשפטים. Okay, Rashi said, ואלה המשפטים, אהיה מתפלל לשלומה של מלכות, אחרת איש את רעהו חיים בלעהו. Every day we need to pray for the government, because instead of the government, if we are not going to have government, if we don't going to have sovereignty, if we don't going to have police, people shall hit each other, harm each other. And this is connected directly to the police all over the world. The only mission of police all over the world is protect the civilians and let them worship their God or do their faith without any harm. Same of the mission of the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal, to challenge and combat anti-Semitism. And I can tell you from my humble perspective that you have a very, very good friends in these two fields, in Toronto and Friends of Simon Wiesenthal. You have brothers in the Israeli police. I want to wish for ourselves that in this beginning of very challenging, hard week for every Israeli, every Jew, every human being that is seeing two infants and one mother getting back home in Cascade, that we will stand one voice, one heart, united against these people that don't believe in the truth, that don't believe in לא תרצח. And Shabbat Shalom, and thank you very much for having me.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. Shabbat Shalom, for your words of peace and for your words of strength. It's a hard act to follow. Fortunately, it's not on me. This Shabbat, we are honored to welcome Rabbi Dr. Geoffrey Haber, who will be our darshan this morning. He is a psychotherapist in private practice with Be Well Health Clinics. He is a Jewish chaplain at Toronto's North York General Hospital, and he is also director of Jewish Faith Formation and an adjunct professor in psychotherapy for the Masters in Psycho-Spiritual Studies at Knox College and the Toronto School of Theology at the U of T. Until his retirement in 2024, Rabbi Haber was the director of spiritual care at Toronto's Baycrest Center. There he served as hospice chaplain. He has been a lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy Reserve Chaplains Corps, and he has also served as a congregational rabbi. He is the author of 5 books, including Reconstructing Faith, a Spiritual and Psychological Journey for Parents of Children with Autism. Rabbi Haber, it's our pleasure to welcome you to deliver words of Torah.
I'm glad they left. I thought they were here to take me away if I didn't speak well. So let me begin by saying Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos. Good morning. Good Kiddush. All right. So I want to thank all of you and your clergy leadership team for inviting me here this morning to come and speak. I have too much spilkas to stand behind the pulpit, so I'm going to probably pace back and forth a little bit. So I hope it doesn't make you dizzy. And I won't be offended if anybody snores. So I want to begin by saying that I had the opportunity to be a rabbi in Calgary, Alberta, back in the late 80s and early 90s. And every opportunity I had to get out to the mountains, I would do that. And one of the most special memories I have is that Gila and I had an opportunity to take a couple of days to go to Chateau Lake Louise and to go cross-country skiing. And it's really beautiful. It's magnificent. If you haven't been out to Lake Louise, Chateau Lake Louise is a castle-like hotel with beautiful oak furnishings, big comfy beds, cozy environment, including fireplace. And we would go cross-country skiing. We'd go out, and one of our favorite ski trails was called the Fairview Loop. Now, you leave outside Chateau Lake Louise, looking at Lake Louise. Through the ice, you can still see the beautiful turquoise waters, and you head into the forest. Magnificent pine trees as high as you can see, dusted with snow. It's really a magnificent sight. And even if there are other people on the trail, chances are you won't be able to see them, and you are in the most serene environment. If you stop for a moment, you don't hear anything. The silence of the winter, the ground asleep, maybe the crunch of the snow under your skis. And we would ski along, and we'd come out of the forest into this magnificent trail along the side of the hill, and you can see the entire Bow Valley below you. The beautiful steel gray, almost charcoal gray waters of the Bow River. Again, contrasting with the white of the snow and the green of the pine trees. You ski a little bit more and you come out to Moraine Lake with its deep indigo blue waters. That's the lake that used to be featured on the back of the $20 bill. And then we'd head back into the forest and back towards Lake Louise. And I couldn't help but stop and take a moment to feel the grandeur of the universe, the cosmos, and me being a part of that oneness of all things. And I would say, Ma gadlu ma'asecha Hashem, how great are your works, O God. Your concepts for creation are so profound. And this is what I would call a peak spiritual moment. We all love those peak spiritual moments. An opportunity to feel something greater than ourselves, to be a part of something grand and beautiful and positive. And oh, how we yearn for them, because they don't last very long. Even in our tradition, we have seen peak spiritual moments. Take for a moment Abraham's covenant with God, Bein HaBitarim, the covenant of the pieces, where he had this intimate communion with God. And the people of Israel experiencing the wonders of the release from slavery to freedom, the crossing of the Sea of Reeds, and in last week's Torah portion, the theophany of God, the revelation of God on Mount Sinai. Those are peak moments. And we yearn for them because they don't last very long, as I said before. We want to have them. We want to feel connected. We want to have that special spiritual enlightenment. But the truth is, if we had it all the time, it would become mundane. Look at all the fetching and the complaining that the Israelites did in the desert after miracle after miracle after miracle that God provided for the people of Israel. They didn't appreciate it. Maybe because it happens so often. It is kind of like a hedonism of the spiritual sort, no different than seeking out constant physical pleasure. We yearn for those moments when we have them. We need to learn to appreciate them when we come off of that peak and into the valley. Last week we read Parshat Yitro, where God revealed the Torah to Moses on Mount Sinai, and it's a peak spiritual moment. But the Israelites have to come down into the valley after that. They have to live out their lives, not with constant peak moments, but with varied here and there. And so our Torah teaches us this week, how do we have those peak moments in the mundane and in the everyday? We read in our Torah portion this morning, Ve'ela hamishpatim. These are the laws, asher tasim lifnehem, that you shall set, you, Moses, shall set before the people of Israel. And Rashi has a very interesting comment here. He says, Kol makom shenemar ele pasal et harishonim. Every place where it says ele is used to disqualify or to end what came before it. Ve'ele mosif al harishonim. Ma rishonim misinai af elu misinai. He says, but when it begins ve'ele, it continues with what preceded it. And just as the Ten Commandments came from Sinai, so too does Mishpatim. But if you look at Mishpatim, as Chaim Shmuel said, it deals with civil law. So what does civil law have to do with the peak moment on Mount Sinai? And I think that the takeaway for me is that it encourages us to feel the spiritual in the mundane, in the everyday. We think of moments of revelation like the covenant between the parts and Mount Sinai as being God's revelation in the world. But Elijah the prophet had another experience of God. When King Ahab sought to kill him, he ran away into the Sinai desert and he cowered in a cave. And he waited for the voice of God to speak to him. And there was an earthquake, we're told, but God's voice wasn't in the earthquake. And there was thunder and lightning, but God's voice wasn't in the thunder and lightning. And there was fire, but God's voice wasn't in the fire. But then in the Dima Daka, the still small voice of God, there was revelation. Oftentimes we look for those peak experiences like Sinai, when all we really need to do is look and see the still small voice of God in the everyday. Take a rose, for example. Look at the beautiful, soft, velvety petals, the fragrance that's so beautiful. And yet this fragile flower stands atop a stern and stiff stem that will bend and bow when the winds, but will not break. Thorns to protect it from those who would seek to destroy it. I look at that rose, and again I say, Magadlu Ma'asecha Adonai, how great are you, O God, your conceptions of the universe, so profound. And that doesn't have to be an odd moment. If we look at each and every day and we see the beauty of each moment, we can open our eyes and see God's presence in the mundane, in the everyday. Parshat Mishpatim reminds us not to forget the beauty of each individual, the sacredness and holiness of each individual made in the image of God. In psychotherapeutic terms, we call this having unconditional positive regard towards the other. It calls upon us not to only think of ourselves, but to think of each other with dignity. There is a whole psychotherapeutic school called dignity therapy. And it's very simple teaching. We should treat each other with dignity. We should treat ourselves, each and every one of us, with dignity. For in religious terms, we are all made in the image of God, and each one of us possesses the divinity within him or herself. And so, Parshat Mishpatim says, don't stand on lofty concepts alone. Turn it into action. Beautiful concepts without action is anemic. Actions without conviction is disingenuous. Parshat Mishpatim tells us that now that we've received the lofty ethical values and moral teachings on Mount Sinai, we have to apply them to the everyday and to treat each and every one of ourselves with dignity and with respect, paying homage to our individual image of God within us, the image of God within each other, the beauty of the ecosystem that binds things all together to take care of this planet because it's the only one that we have. Parshat Mishpatim is the call to action based on the teachings of the Ten Commandments. Seek out the holy in each every day, because no moment is mundane if it is infused with the holiness of God. Shabbat Shalom.